Hey, what's up guys, it's me your boy Oraban Kaste Kevinish back here with another brand new video and I hope you guys are having a great day. And in this video, I'm going to give my ranking for the drivers for their performance in the Miami Grand Prix weekend. So let's start off with explaining the scoring system. So it's going to be a top 10, whoever scores the 10 points is the best driver and whoever scores 1 point is the worst. And how I'm going to judge for these points is going to be considering all through the free practice leading up to the qualifying and the race performance itself. Without any further ado, let's get right into the video guys. So let's start off with the Red Bull pair. Let's start off with Checo. He had a flawless weekend. He had no issues, which was good. His pace to Max at the start of FP1 was quite large, and as the session went on, he was inching closer and closer. I think he was tweaking his setup to get it perfectly dialed in. And in qualifying, Max made a mistake, Checo didn't. He managed to get pole position for the team when Max was not able to do so, which is exactly what the team would expect out of Checo. In the race, he held his ground. He did not lose the lead to Alonso going into turn 1. He kept the lead all through his first stint. Managed to finish the race second with just 5 seconds off of Max. So I'm going to give him 8. 8 out of 10. I think it was a good weekend. But I think if he had won the race, it would have been even more special. And Checo got pole because Max was not able to complete his lap time in Q3. Easily, Max had 2-3 tenths of pace in his pocket over Checo, which would have got him pole position easily. So 8 out of 10 for Checo. Moving on to Max. Max is going to get 9 out of 10. So I'll tell you, this was probably his most dominant weekend after the Bahrain Grand Prix. And I have to say 9 out of 10, I'm taking that 1 point off just because he was not able to set a lap time in Q3 on his own mistake. He understeered into the corner from the exit of turn 6 entering turn 7. So yeah, 9 out of 10 is still a great job. Moving on to the Aston Martin pair now. Fernando Alonso, 10 on 10, easy 10 on 10. He maximized his race result. I don't think he could have done anything more than that. P3 for Aston Martin is probably the best place for them to finish. The Red Bull is just right now too far off for them to catch, especially on a track that is mostly oriented towards high speed. And he managed to qualify in P2, put the car on the front row of the grid. So overall, a solid weekend from Fernando Alonso. So 10 on 10. Moving on to Lance Stroll, I'm going to give him 3 out of 10. I know it may sound very harsh, but honestly, this was not his best weekend. Like, he had a car that is easily the second fastest car on the grid on that particular weekend, and he got knocked out in Q1. Whether that's down to the track evolution or whatever you may say, Fernando Alonso managed to get through and Lance Stroll could not do so. Even in the race, he was not able to make any quick improvements on his positions. He finished P13 out of points when his teammate was on the podium step. So I think 3 out of 10 is justifiable scoring. So let's move on to George Russell. Well, I'm going to give him an easy 9 out of 10. It was another flawless weekend from him. He did everything he could. He managed to get into Q3 with the Mercedes, which seemed extremely weak under 1 lap pace, and he managed to finish the race P4, which is probably the best he could do. And it was a flawless weekend from George Russell. He did not make any unnecessary mistake. Even if he locked up, he still managed to recover the car really well. He did not put the car in the wall like Charles did. So it was a 9 out of 10 for George Russell. Moving on to Lewis Hamilton, I'm gonna give him an 8 out of 10. Again, it was a good weekend from him. Starting P13, finishing the race P6 is a good result, a good improvement on a track that is possibly very slippery off the racing line. So he made some good moves on a car that is probably not so good on its brakes. Getting knocked out in Q2 is probably the biggest moment which is going to cost him those 2 points in my scoring. So 8 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. So now let's move on to the Ferrari pair. Carlos Sainz, a good weekend from him. A major improvement is what I saw from Carlos Sainz this weekend. He managed to finish the race ahead of Charles. He managed to out-qualify Charles this weekend. So he's gonna get 9 out of 10. He did everything he could, and that 1 point that costs him is for the mistake that he did entering fast into the pit lane. I mean, he was in no rush to be driving so fast entering the pit lane. I know that he's trying trying to save time that he could possibly lose to Alonso on the pit entry. That costed him in a 5-second time penalty, and if he didn't have that consistent pace that he did, he would have probably finished much lower. That risk puts him 9 out of 10. So moving on to Charles Leclerc. Well, I'm gonna give him 7 out of 10. He managed to get into Q3. Yes, he did crash at both FP3 and in qualifying in Q3, but still it's because he was trying to outdrive the car. We have to understand the situation as well. And in the race, on the first stint, he was pretty much nowhere, and somehow he still managed to recover the car and finish P7 if I'm not wrong. So it was still on the whole a good result from Charles Leclerc, the best he could possibly do, a decent damage control weekend from Charles Leclerc. So moving on to the Alpine pair, starting off with Pierre Gasly. I'm gonna give him 9 out of 10. It was a good solid weekend. He managed to out-qualify and outrace his teammate this weekend, and honestly, this has probably been his best weekend so far this season. If he had finished in Australia in P4, yeah, that would have honestly been the highest point of his Alpine career so far, but he binned it. He also took out his teammate in Australia, so this is his highest point in the Alpine career so far, and he did a brilliant job this weekend. So I'm gonna give him 9 out of 10. So moving on to Ocon. Considering that Gasly is in his first year with Alpine, he's still learning the car. The fact that he managed to outqualify Ocon and managed to outrace Ocon is not a good sight. Ocon had a decent weekend. It was not bad, at the same time it was not a brilliant or a good weekend. So I'm going to give him a 8 out of 10. So moving on to the Alfa Romeo pair. I'm going to give Valtteri Bottas a 8 out of 10. I think it was a good weekend. He managed to get into Q3. He managed to finish P13 whilst his teammate finished P16. Out-qualified teammate, outraced teammate. So a good result. He probably maximized on what he was given to work with. So not going to complain much. It's a 8 out of 10. And for Guan Yu Zhou, I'm going to give him 6 out of 10. I mean, not really his fault, but not being able to make a huge impression under race trim. Finishing P16 is not so good of a result when your teammate is finishing P13. So, I mean, it's still a good score. As long as a score is above 5, guys, it is a good score. It's just that the 5 to 7 is really represents a decent to a good weekend. So it was a decent performance from Guan Yu Zhou. So now moving on to the Haas pairing. Kevin Magnussen. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. I think that is the maximum he could have done with the Haas. He managed to finish the qualifying P4 and managed to finish the race P10. Held off Yuki Tsunoda to finish in the points. He got 1 point for the team on their home Grand Prix. So overall, 9 points for Magnussen. So moving on to Nico Hülkenberg. I'm going to give him 7 out of 10. Honestly, not bad. He was fast all through the free practice sessions. He was fast in the qualifying as well. He did put the car in the wall in the free practice session, causing red flag, and that's going to steal some points off of him. And I know that he didn't get into Q3 because he got held up by traffic on his outlap in Q2, but still not being able to get into Q3 when you had the pace advantage over your teammate, both those things is going to compromise on his points, and I'm going to give him 7 out of 10. So moving on to the Williams pair, Alex Albon. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. Now hear me out. Honestly, with the car that he had underneath him, qualifying P11 and finishing the race P14 is probably the best result that he could extract out of the car this weekend. So honestly, he did everything he could for the team, and it's now up to the team on how they develop the car. If they can give him any better car, I'm sure that he'll be able to extract some points in the upcoming Grand Prix. I mean, it is a long season that we have up ahead of us, so it's not impossible for Williams to score more points this season. Yeah, it was a flawless weekend from Alex, so I'm gonna give him 9 out of 10 for this weekend. For his teammate Logan Sargent though, I'm sorry, I have to be a bit critical, and I'm gonna give him a 2 out of 10. It was not a good weekend. He qualified 20th, finished the race 20th. Not a good look considering your teammates qualifying P11 and finishing the race P14. Especially it's your home Grand Prix, so the energy should be there. The positive energy for you should be there, which should help you extract that extra 10th out of the car. So finishing P20 both in the qualifying and race is just not a good look, even for a rookie. So I'm gonna give him a 2 out of 10. So moving on to the McLaren duo, Lando Norris. I'm gonna give him a 8 out of 10. He did nothing wrong. He qualified P16 the best he could, and in the race he got hit right away at the race start by De Vries, and both the drivers actually started on the soft compound, which was not a good tire to start on considering that the track is green after the rain that they had literally last night. So I don't know what McLaren were thinking putting their car on the soft compounds for the race start. They're just going to degrade so fast compared to all the cars around them, considering that every other car on the grid were on the medium and hard compound. It was a flawless weekend from him, so I'm going to give him a 8 out of 10. And for Piastri as well, I'm going to give him a solid 8 out of 10. He seemed to make the best out of the soft compound at the race start. He gained some position, but again, on a green track, the soft compound is just going to degrade, and he had to enter the pits. I think he was probably the first car to enter the pit under normal circumstances, and the McLaren duo finished the race P17 and P19. So I'm going to give Oscar Piastri 8 out of 10 as well. So moving on to the AlphaTauri duo. Yuki Tsunoda, the star of the team this season so far. So Yuki Tsunoda qualified P17, getting knocked out in Q1, whilst his teammate outqualified him. Actually, he qualified P15. So getting knocked out in Q1 is probably the only thing that's going to steal some points off of him. But other than that, his weekend has been flawless. He managed to finish the race P11. He was battling for P10, so he probably could have got P10. Considering all those circumstances, I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. And for his teammate though, Nick De Vries, considering that he qualified P15, 2 places higher than his teammate, making a mistake, locking up into turn 1, hitting another car is not a good look, and he managed to finish the race 19th. Considering where Yuki Tsunoda was in the race towards the end, he was P11, he was fighting for points. So considering that if Nick De Vries managed to get a good start, he should have been able to fight for points as well. He should have been in the points. If Yuki Tsunoda starting from 17th was able to fight for the points and finish P11, Nick De Vries should be easily able to be in the points with that car, or at least be in the same battle as Yuki Tsunoda. That would have been a much better improvement. But it just seems like Nick De Vries is not having a good season, and I'm actually making another video talking about Nick De Vries' performance this season so far and how it can impact his career in Formula 1. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, for Nick De Vries, I'm gonna give him a 3 out of 10, and I'm giving him that 3 point because he actually outqualified his teammate. So yeah, that is my ranking for the drivers for the Miami Grand Prix weekend. So I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know in the comments on what is your ranking for each driver's performance this race weekend. I'm excited to know. So yeah, with that being said, I would like to wrap up this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure that thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe to the Autobahncast YouTube channel if you haven't already. And also hit that bell icon and turn on all notifications so you get notified when I upload a brand new video. It's me, your boy Autobahncast aka Vinesh, and I'm out. Love you guys. Stay safe. Peace.